when I greeted DCP Bailey upon entering this venue, I said, "You must feel great." And he said, "Yes, you know, I've spent 40 years and 7 months. I was about to ask him how many days. But actually, today is exactly 40 years and 7 months. In anything, whether an institution or an individual, 40 years is a long time. So you could easily say that Fitz has dedicated his useful life to the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And now he's going to make use of the remainder of his life. I will share this with you. I have never gotten so many petitions for anyone to remain in their position. I've gotten calls from members of civil society, members of the private sector, just average persons. You have developed a great deal of goodwill in the country. Now, there are other policemen who have made their names. And you know, you would consider them to be brand name policemen. They have made their names over and above the institution. Some of them not based on institutional policies and principles, but they have made their names. Fitz, however, has made his name because he exemplifies the policies and the principles that we would all want to see in the JCF. And therefore, some persons would use this to say, that is why Fitz should remain. You should find every way to keep him in the force. I understand. I'm sympathetic to that view. But whenever I spend the time to listen to the public debate and listen to the narrative, there is a sense that the public, and in particular those persons in elite positions, have not yet gotten the memo that this is a different JCF. We're living in a different Jamaica. First of all, for the JCF to produce a Fitz Bailey is a credit to the JCF. Second of all, for the JCF to feel that Fitz, having served, reached his time, he's going to retire, that is a signal to say that the JCF is not short of talent like Fitz Bailey. The JCF has institutionalized the principles that DCP Bailey exemplifies. Many of you here, as retired officers and long-serving officers, would recall when the view was the JCF could not reform itself. The JCF could not, within itself, produce officers like Fitz Bailey, and therefore we had to import officers into your ranks. That is where the JCF is coming from. Now, you're an institution that is growing. You are recruiting more persons than are leaving. The size of the JCF has grown in the last 8 years. Your technology, your policies and procedures, your SOPs have all improved. The uniform change is just an outward show of the inward improvement of the human resources and talent pool of the JCF. The JCF will produce many more Fitz Baileys, thereby lifting the standards of the organization in the eyes of the institution. Our esteemed Master of Ceremony said, there was a time when the JCF was viewed as Babylon. But with hard work and dedication and sticking to the principles, we have transformed the JCF to be viewed as a force for good. So Fitz, we're not losing you. You're creating space for those who you have trained, who look up to you, who you have guided, for them to also emerge below you, to keep the organization refreshing and renewing and producing the talent which will then make its way into other areas that need your skills. Your leaving the JCF is not a loss to the nation, because I'm sure that there will be other areas in which your skills will be most useful. And I would want to see you serving in some of these areas. What I particularly admire about you is that you are a policeman and a bishop. I don't know if you pray before you shoot, but but I'm certain that there is divine guidance in all that you have done. Your pathway has been lighted by the Almighty. You told me that you were baptized at age 12, and you have stuck with your church and God and family to rise to the level where you oversee your church. That in itself is something to be praised and admired. Permit me, if I use this opportunity to speak on some other matters. Do I have your permission, Fitz, Commissioner? Not that you had any choice, but the existential challenge facing countries like Jamaica is the rise of armed, organized violence. It is a challenge facing the region, meaning the Americas, specifically Central America and the Caribbean region. For some countries, armed, organized violence is not a threat to them, even though it is significant. even though it affects their commerce and citizen security. Why? It's not so much of a threat to some countries. Because they have large economies, they have large budgets, they have large police force. They can employ all kinds of technology. Crime in Detroit, in Washington, in Chicago doesn't really affect the homicide rate in the United States. Homicide rate is between 6 or 7%, 6 or 7 per 100,000. But the homicide rate in Jamaica fluctuates as high as 50 per 100,000 to an average about 35 or 40 per 100,000. And in absolute numbers, the United States has a large number of homicides relative to Jamaica, but you're dealing with size. So the homicide rate in a country like St. Kitts would be very high. It's a small population. In Trinidad, it would be very high, a small population. Much can be made of the insecurity of the country by virtue of just looking at the homicide rate. But for a small country, developing state like Jamaica, when gangs begin to organize around violence and they seek to acquire weapons to produce that violence and to produce it at a level where it becomes a terror to the citizens, a threat to the state, weakening the confidence of the citizen in the state to protect them. What should governments do? And can that be treated as ordinary crime? I'm speaking to mainly an audience of police officers, so you would appreciate what I am saying. There would have to be additional measures to treat with this phenomenon. Because this is not ordinary crime. We have seen the extreme of this in Haiti. We have seen the extreme of this in Colombia, in El Salvador, in Honduras, in Trinidad and Tobago, in St. Lucia, in the Bahamas, and we have been plagued with this for decades in Jamaica. What should we do? There is no global convention to support us in treating with armed, organized violence. The larger states who are critical of our methods, for them it is not a problem. But for us it is. I say this because there have been statements urging Jamaica to look carefully on the use of states of public emergency. Jamaica must do everything in its power to protect human rights. And in the transformation of the JCF, every officer here will tell you that in their training, in their retraining, in all their development courses, respect for citizens' rights, respect for human rights is paramount, including in our operations, including in our equipping the force, in the use of force, in every aspect of it. And I urge the JCF to continue on this path to show the world that we don't need to be told to respect human rights. That is something that is ingrained in us. The respect for human rights. But you know what is missing in the conversation? The respect for the rights of the victims. No one speaks about the rights of the victims, those families who have lost loved ones. No international agency is coming to say, protect the innocent citizen. None. Well, you, the members of the JCF, you are the ones that the people of Jamaica rely on to protect them against those who would seek to organize and import guns to kill innocent people. And so I urge you to use all the methods and trainings that you have been given, bearing in mind the respect for the rights of the citizen, to pursue those who would put our state at risk. That is your charge. And we will continue within our limited budget to support you, to equip you, whether it is new police stations, new motor vehicles, new equipment and technology, support for your training. We will continue to support you because we believe in our country and we believe we can bring the gangs to heel without destroying the rights of the citizens. And that is what we have set out to do, and we have been very successful in our plans. The original strategy was to attenuate the situation by using extraordinary powers to bring the situation within the capacity of the police force to manage, which is what all the developed countries do. Whenever crime or any other issue gets above their capacity, they use extraordinary powers. Nobody criticizes them. We have a situation here that for many years, it has been over and above our investigative capacity, over and above our transport capacity, over and above the ability to put boots on the ground in the challenged communities. And what has the government done in the last 8 years? Build out capacity. And so we don't rely on SOEs anymore because we are building capacity. And you would have seen that in the last 3 years, the number of gang cases that we would have brought to the courts and the number of gangs that we have disrupted and dismantled was more than in the last 30 years. All major crimes are down by 20%. Murders, homicides are going down. So I want Jamaicans to understand that your government is acting in your best interest, and that those who don't understand what is happening in Jamaica should get the right information before they speak and support the government of Jamaica in ensuring that our citizens are safe and that the region is safe. And we will not relent against the criminals. So, as we celebrate the retirement of an extraordinary policeman. Because at the end of the day, you are the Deputy Chief Constable. A policeman, clothed with the authority of the state, invested with the dignity of the people. And you have executed your job well. And as you leave this job to no doubt go on to other fields, you will be remembered. And your work will be the model that others will seek to follow. What more could a man ask? God bless you in your journeys, and thank you.